Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of And Action. I'm Tommy DiNucci here with Mike Messier, and today we have a very special topic. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite actors, a guy I've had a chance to work with on both sides of the camera, the one and only William Forsythe. We're going to be getting into all that and more and sharing some fun William Forsythe stories. But first, Mike, how the hell are you?
I'm good, Tommy. I was just in Vero Beach, Florida for the Vero Beach Film Festival last week. I had a 1 minute movie, The Hospital Bed, in it. And, Tommy, you've been to enough film festivals. You know that sometimes festivals struggle to get crowds, but this festival, almost every screening of every movie, documentary or narrative, was sold out. It was very impressive. The people there have done a good job with their marketing, and whatever ticket packages they're selling to people is working because the community was coming out to support these independent films. It was quite nice to see.
Yeah, it must be nice to be at a good old fashioned film festival. I haven't been to one in a long time because of the pandemic. Obviously, here in Rhode Island, we've got the Rhode Island Film Festival, which is always a great event. But in recent years, things have been a little. The film festival's getting back in action, and I'm looking forward to going to a festival or two in the not too distant future. It's been a while, man. I don't think I've been to a film festival in years. That must have been fun.
Yeah, it was fun, and they had local eateries supported the thing with some complimentary meals for the filmmakers, and you're walking. I'm walking around with this filmmaker pass that always makes you feel good, and really interesting, Tommy. Like people would see the films and then come up to you afterwards, like even not just immediately after, but like a couple of hours later at some other thing. People would come up to me and mention they saw my 1 minute
You know,
hospital bed film.
People love a good lanyard. I feel as though if you have a lanyard that, especially if it says your goddamn name on it, if you have
Yeah.
a personalized lanyard, that's worth the price of admission to almost any event right there. So I'm glad that they had the lanyards. Little tip to any filmmakers out there that are about to run a film festival: if you ever spend any money on anything, get yourself some cheap lanyards. Put the filmmakers' names on them. They'll feel like $1 million. Mike, you might hear some lawnmowers, you might hear some yard work and craziness in the neighborhood here. We're doing a very rare afternoon, daytime broadcast
Yep.
because, well, the truth is, it's been a fucking crazy couple weeks, and there's
Yeah.
no sign of it slowing down until really the end of the month. So we're just happy that we could have kind of coordinated our schedules so that you're not doing something, I'm not doing something, and we could get this show to happen as Stephen E checks in. What's up, Stephen E? We all know you're going to see Jurassic Park later. I'm excited for you. That looks awesome. We're glad you got a little chance to check in on the show. Um, but
It's
yeah,
to
it's
it.
been a crazy. Yeah, here's to you, Mike. Crack one open for the common man and woman in person listening to our show.
Yeah.
Um, the truth is, it's just been a crazy handful of weeks. There is light at the end of the tunnel. If you've been following along with my chaotic kind of filmmaking endeavors, I've been really trying hard to finish Johnny and Clyde, starring Megan Fox. We're very, very close. We've got ADR. Remember, ADR is when we take the bad dialogue, we replace it with good dialogue. The actors have to actually watch the screen and tune in with their voices and match it perfectly. It's a really specific art form, and frankly, it's very tedious. It's one of those things that, like, it's tough. It's I don't want to say it's it's all fun. We're making movies, but it's not one of the more fun parts of this job. So I've got like a 4-hour ADR session later on with our lead Avin Jogia. So that's going to be going down tonight. He's actually in New Zealand.
Wow.
So for him, it's funny. It's going to be 6 p.m. our time here on the East Coast of the United States on June 14th, which is a Tuesday. But for Avon in New Zealand, it's going to be 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 15th.
Wow.
Hemispheres are some fucked up shit, let me tell you.
That's true.
So we've got one more to go, and then after that, we have this is Avon, and then one more to go. So it's winding down, and then next week, if you've been following along, I will start work on a film this weekend. Can't really release too much information on that yet, but it's going down in Connecticut. I'll be traveling. And then on the following week, I'm going to be coming back to Rhode Island to work on a movie. And again, like, guys, I'm not complaining. Like, I'm so blessed to have these opportunities and to be even juggling two movies around. But it is going to be a lot, and it's gonna be tough because the movie in Connecticut shoots nights, which means the average night is like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And the
Right.
movie in Rhode Island shoots mostly early mornings, like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's almost
Mhm.
exactly the fucking opposite for me. So, like, for example, like on Saturday, I'll work till maybe 6 a.m.,
Right.
catch a few hours sleep, get in the car, drive home to Rhode Island, and then boom, like Monday morning, like as soon as the sun's up, I'm on set. So it's again, it's one of those things that there was a time in my life when I only would have dreamed of being on two movie sets and going back and forth and playing two different, very different parts and very different movies. But then when you actually have to do it, you're like, oh wow, this is a
Kind of
fucking
hard.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, forget about like, obviously like you got to learn your lines, you got to put in a
Yeah.
good performance, you've got to forget about all the acting stuff. Put all the acting stuff on the shelf. That's hard
Right.
as it is. That's really the hardest part. Now just getting through the scheduling, the travel, making sure that, little things like the two looks had to be right.
Yeah.
One of the directors originally wanted me to have lighter hair. I was able to get that to work out because I can't go from like being shaved to
Right.
unshaved to shaved again. So fortunately that all worked out. But yeah, it's going to be a crazy June. But like I said, I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity. Stephen E has a couple things to say here. Stephen E tries to go to the movies once a week. Always a good way to get
Good.
out there. There's a couple movies that I'm dying to see right now. Definitely Jurassic Park. Got to see Top Gun Maverick. But there's more than that. There's actually a basketball movie starring Adam Sandler. Forgive me, I don't have the name, but it just came out on Netflix.
Hustle with Queen
Yeah, it looks
Latifah.
looks really good. So there's a lot of good movies out there right now.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see. Yes, I had to do it last year. Yeah, the back and forth is really tough. Thank you for the congrats, Steven. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't complain about it. It's all part of the game. And yes, I do have a webinar. It's my first ever webinar. I've never done it before. It's going to be going down this Thursday. We can talk more about that at the end of the show. But there's a lot going on. I'm so happy we could get on here and do a show because I wasn't sure if we could squeeze one in, but we did, and we're here and we're ready to talk about, like I said, one of my favorite actors, one of the greatest people I've met in the movie business, just in terms of just being a good person and somebody that you'd want to, have a drink with, eat a piece of pizza with, laugh with, whatever you want to call it. William Forsythe. Mike, this isn't, anybody could go to Wikipedia and punch in the name and find out all about him. So we're not going to go too deep into his biography and what his parents' middle names are and things like that. I'm just going to kind of share some stories about William and how he's affected me as not only an actor but also as a director. And we're going to kind of
Right.
just get into it.
All right. Sounds good to me.
So if you don't know William, he's been in a lot of the greatest films of the kind of, harkens all the way back to that 80s era,
Yep.
80s, 90s, when you think of like the heavy, the bad guy, the villain. That's a lot of the kind of characters that William played. William was born, he's a little we'll give you a little biographical
Sure.
information.
Raised in
William was
Arizona, a
born
lot of stuff. Yeah.
William was born June 7th, 1955. He just turned 67 last week, so happy birthday, shout outs to William. Born in Brooklyn, New York, and he was a very tough kid. And I remember him telling me stories about his upbringing as a kid and how he got into a lot of fights growing up. And it was, classic. We're talking 1960s Brooklyn, and it was, kind of he was an other side of the tracks kind of kid. And he told me this really cool story that I'll never forget. And maybe someday I'll put it in a movie. And William's got this great voice, and I'll probably end up doing it a couple times on the show, a couple hundred times on the show. But I remember him telling me that his neighborhood was rough, and he's like, Tommy, you'd get in trouble if you had a knife or a weapon like that, but if you carried a little bit of sand in your pocket. I was like, what are you doing with the sand in your pocket? He's like, well, you get a little sand in your pocket, and when the bully comes up to you and tries to jump you take it out and you throw that sand right in their face. You either hit them and run, or you just throw the sand in their face and you run, you kick them, whatever you can do. That sand will provide just enough of a chance for you to get away from a good jumping. And there's no laws against having a nice fistful of sand in your pocket. And I just said to myself, God damn, That's fucking awesome. And first off, wrestling reference, get a little Mr. Fuji in him,
Yeah,
throwing the,
yeah.
like the old
Oriental
salt
salt.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mr. Fuji would throw. But it's pretty amazing if you think about it. Like, pretty cool idea.
It is good. I
And
mean, I
yeah,
wish I had known that growing up. I could have used the sand trick for
yeah, the
a
sand
couple
trick
of
was
guys.
good. Stephen E thinks my William sounds like a Jack, and the truth is, they kind of sound alike. Like if you
Right.
really chat with William, like he kind of has that same kind of cadence to his voice.
Yeah. Every
So
word
as
counts.
we make our way through here, William, as I said, tough kid, grew up in Brooklyn, but had an affinity for the arts. Loved theater and wanted to get involved in plays. So got into a lot of the classic, early '70s theater scene. And before you know it, like a lot of actors do, he was off to Los Angeles and kind of trying to do the LA actor thing.
Right.
Booked some parts. Had a couple early series. Stephen E actually mentioned Hill Street Blues. Things were different back then, guys. I just want to we'll talk about this throughout the show, but it was a lot more challenging to become an actor back then. I mean, think about a time when social media doesn't exist.
Right.
So there's no way to build your following. There's no way to fake it. There's no way to like buy a bunch of followers and get someone's attention. Or, oh, you get a blue verified check mark. This person must mean
You
something.
couldn't fake. You couldn't fight
You,
Jake Paul somewhere for on pay per view or on Triller or whatever. Yeah.
nope, you couldn't do some crazy publicity stunt. There were two ways to get in the business back then, really, and it was either to be well, three ways. It was either you had to know somebody, meaning you were, related to somebody or whatever. Perhaps, the second would be maybe you were someone's close friend, we'll say, that was
Side
one way to
piece.
get
Yeah.
get involved.
Right.
Or the obvious way, which is you had to be really fucking talented. There were
Yeah.
no like excuses. There were no ways in the old school Hollywood era. It was kind of like you either have it or you don't, and Williams certainly had it. And I think it's one of those things where he kind of like started working a little bit in LA, but then got a job doing some kind of like a steady theater gig in New York, moved back to New York. And he's told me some really funny stories about like his days of being a young actor in New York. And like a bunch of people would just like rent a place. And he said, Tommy, I would sleep in a tent in the corner of the living room. He's like, we didn't have beds. He's like, there were so many people occupying the place
Yeah.
that they literally just like nobody had bedrooms. They all just like made like a pop-up tent, little tent city inside of an apartment, and
Wow.
everybody would just kind of like pay rent when they could, which is pretty funny. So yeah, let's see here, Mr. Fuji, Demolition. Yeah, exactly, Stephen. The only way to really
Yeah.
get out there
Steven
in the
knows.
business was just to get out there and hit the pavement. And that's the thing too. Like we take it for granted all these times. Like
Right.
imagine being an actor in a day when like there was no such thing as a virtual tape. Like virtual taping doesn't exist. Like you want to you want to pull a part off. You can't like sit there for 2 hours and wait to find the perfect take you want to send into the director. You had to like show up, you had to meet the person and, put in some good old fashioned one-on-one FaceTime and have some talent and book the part. So
Well,
William did
Tommy,
that.
yeah, how many times have you or I or anybody from New England driven from Rhode Island or Connecticut up to Boston, sat on a bench for an hour, and waited for their 2 minutes to be seen for something? So William did that to a higher level at a probably a more competitive time and place, is what you're getting at.
Exactly. It's just one of those things where he you had to have it back then and there was no bullshit and he had it. So right off the bat, William started to kind of get some traction. And I think the first movie that really was big for him was the Coen brothers Raising Arizona. And then from there, it kind of seemed to just really, again, there were less actors back in that era. So it was like once you kind of got with the right momentum build, it was a lot easier to kind of just go from part to part to part. And William was hot and talented and just started booking parts left and right. Everything from Once Upon a Time in America, Dick Tracy, Gotti. He was Sammy the Bull. I love that movie. Then he did The Rock and playing opposite Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery, Devil's Rejects. That's one of the reasons why a lot of the fans of the horror genre love him. And of course, the gangster fans love him because he was in the Boardwalk Empire. Also did a show in the 80s called The Untouchables, which we all know
Yep.
The Untouchables was a movie, but it was also a TV show. And William played Al Capone. So like to this day, William can go into Chicago and like get a meal for free in almost any Italian restaurant. Um, and yeah, it's kind of funny. Just a quick Dick Tracy tidbit. I don't want to tell too many tales outside of school, but William told me, kind of in confidence, that he played the flat top character in that movie. And if you're a fan of the comic books, which you're probably not because you're not 125 years old, which you would have had to be because those comics came out in like the 30s and 40s. But back in the day, Flat Top was actually like one of the main villains. Like he was kind of
Right.
the bad guy that Dick Tracy would always fight. But when they and apparently William's role was much bigger in the script. But then when they cast Al Pacino at the last minute, that character suddenly kind of took over,
Right.
and Al Pacino's character became more prominent, and of course, William's character shrunk a little bit. But I remember William telling me about that and telling me that that was like the first movie that they had, like he had like a toy deal, and that there was an action figure line and everything. So I think that was one of William's better kind of roles in terms of like wow that the we're in the money kind of thing start to kick off a little bit.
Well, I mean that movie had Madonna did the soundtrack. I think Warren Beatty played Dick Tracy, right? And it was one of those movies that was a big deal, but I think the studio and some folks expected it to be even a bigger deal. They were trying to be bigger than Batman, and I don't think it quite reached that. But still, the toy deal, very interesting tidbit. You talk about the Williams character of Flat Top being kind of reduced because Pacino was suddenly in the movie. That's the type of stuff that I'm sure William and all actors of that ilk have been through. Those minor heartbreaks, and you just have to keep on trucking because the business will kill you emotionally if you let it. But a guy like William knows you have to be strong and have faith in your own value as an actor and keep on moving.
Yeah, and of course, and as you can see, like you said, Mike, he didn't let it get to him. He went on to create 100 other amazing films after Dick Tracy. And yeah, you made a good point. Like I remember as a little kid, like Dick Tracy was one of the first two movies, date myself a little, the first two movies that I ever really remember in terms of like heavy mass promotions was the first Batman movie starring Michael Keaton and obviously Jack Nicholson and Dick Tracy. And they came out in right around the same time. I think Batman was 89. I think Dick Tracy was 90.
Yes,
And I remember as a little kid, I had a Dick Tracy lunchbox in school. Like Dick Tracy was a marketing mega machine. They had Dick Tracy sheets, they had Dick Tracy Halloween costumes and action figures, like we said. They were trying really fucking hard to make that a mass franchise. And like you said, I think it just missed the mark. Like a young Macaulay Culkin's in that movie. Like how random is that?
right.
But yeah, I think it just kind of it just was a miss. And it was one of those things where if you watch that movie now, which I actually have recently, I think it plays a lot better now than it ever did back then. It's
Right.
kind of funny because you got Madonna. I hate to do this little wormhole that I'm going down, but I kind of want to check out Dick Tracy
Yeah.
and get.
I mean, Madonna had a whole concept album titled "I'm Breathless," I believe, that was part of the release and the hype of Dick Tracy. So there was a lot of stuff going on around the Dick Tracy movie. I'm seeing that on my end. Tommy's frozen up a little bit, so I'm gonna just talk. But hopefully, we're both on the show still. And Tommy might have gone down to IMDb Pro. And unfortunately, opening another window might have slowed him down a little bit. But I remember seeing William Forsythe in a movie called Weeds with Nick Nolte. And Weeds is a movie that I think came out in 1987. It was about guys in a prison serving hard time. And one of the characters, played by Nick Nolte, somehow gets caught in the idea of being in theater. And he starts running theater shows in the prison using his co-inmates as the other actors. And this gentleman, William Forsythe, plays one of the fellow inmates with Nick Nolte's character. And I believe William's character was a little, slow or lower IQ, but very physical, very visceral with his body. And I believe in the play within the movie, uh, William's character is cast as a cop. So basically, the bad guy. So he's the bad guy amongst the bad guys, so to speak. He's a prisoner. William, the actor, is playing the inmate who's playing a cop in the play within the movie in Weeds. Very powerful piece. I think it's one of those movies that's kind of overlooked for whatever reason. It was a couple of years before Nolte did, the thing with Barbara Streisand, the Prince of Tides. So a couple of years before that. But Nick Nolte at his peak, William arguably at his peak, all very important stuff. So, folks, I do want to thank you for watching the show. We are having a little technical difficulty. My buddy Tommy, I think, unfortunately, I think when he opened another window, he got booted off his own thread. Or maybe I'm booted off the thread. But in any event, I'm still here. If anyone can see me or hear me, please comment. Hey, Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Bro, I got fucked. I don't know what happened. Like, I went to go grab my computer, and like it knocked me offline or something. And then the StreamYard thing was like, "We're sorry." The problem isn't here.
Let me see if I can, because I'm still on it. I don't know if the show is still running or not. I'm still here. I'm still on the camera, but I don't know if we're still going or not. I'm seeing if there's like a way that I can invite you back in.
Let me see if I can do it.
All right. So we're working on getting Tommy back. Stephen E. says Tommy is gone. You're here, Mike. Tommy just called me. I don't know if you heard that, but we're going to try to get Tommy back in. If we have to end this episode early and then start another one, part 2, so to speak, we'll do it.
I think I'm back, guys. Wow.
Well,
that was scary, man.
Stephen E. got us through it, but we're here. I was just telling Tommy my own, you obviously have a bigger connection to William than I do, but my own little William Forsythe insight was just kind of putting over the movie Weeds that I've told you about that he did back in 1987 with Nick Nolte. And William plays a prisoner who in the play within the movie plays a cop. So, I mean, talk about the character twice. So, yeah, I really do. I mean, and if you ever see William or you talk to him about this, you can tell him that he's got a Weeds fan in Mike Messier, because I think it's an overlooked movie, a real masterpiece.
By the way, quick correction on my part. Earlier, I said Macaulay Culkin's and Dick Tracy, and he's not. The kid was Charlie Korsmo.
Oh, sure.
The kid who was in, I believe, Hook. I want to say he was in Hook. Yeah, he was in Hook.
The Dustin Hoffman Hook.
And Kent. What about Bob? He was kind of a child actor in the early '90s. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that was scary. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulty. I'm glad to be back. And God damn it, man. I'm glad that we were able to get through that. Okay, so where was I? I was just getting into some very important stuff. We were actually just getting to the part where I was literally, before I wanted to go into this friggin' Dick Tracy rabbit hole, I was just about to say my first time ever meeting William was on the set of Incubus, which if you've been following along with the show, we just did an episode on Incubus not too long ago. I think that was that last week? No, it was the week before last. Yeah, it was episode 7 is about the movie Incubus, which stars Robert Englund, and going opposite Robert Englund, head to toe with him, is our boy William Forsythe. And I'll never forget meeting him, because obviously, he's a guy who, like I said, we've all talked about, he's been in a lot of great movies. And when you're a young actor and you're first kind of getting on the scene, a little bit of it's fanboyish, you're kind of fanning out a little bit. a little bit of it's ego. I'll admit there's a little level of ego because in your mind you're like, wow, look at me. I'm in a scene with guy who's in The Rock right next to Sean Connery. You know, you start to like that awful 3-letter word, the ego starts to get fed a little bit, and you realize that like shit, my name's on the call sheet right next to this like legit guy, like a real deal actor. Look, you know, like look at me. And of course, ego aside, because I'm honest on this show, guys. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm going to tell you like as much as like what I'm kind of thinking, and because chances are this is what a lot of people think. And then there's the part of you that's the technician. It's like, what can I learn from this person? You know, like how can I like just soak this guy up like a sponge? So I remember meeting him because you know he was on set because he was doing like a wardrobe fitting a couple days before, and I was working on the movie because you remember if you hadn't, you can check out in our archives the Incubus episode. But one of the ways that I got the part was like I had agreed to do like literally manual labor and like do whatever the fuck it takes, and they needed me. So like I was already at the building like doing God knows what. And I remember Glenn Ciano, who directed that film, had worked with William in a movie called Palookaville, which is actually a really good movie with Vincent Gallo. It's kind of a hidden 90s gem. And Glenn worked on that. He was just a PA at the time, but kind of hit it off with William, and they, you know, became buddies. And here he is years later working on Glenn's first movie. So Glenn introduced me to him. I was like, oh, William, meet Tommy. And I had been working out a lot for this movie because, again, like one of the things we do, especially as young actors, we think like, well, the first thing I can do is get in incredible shape. Like I know that like that's at least forget about my fucking talent or my ability to actually like say the dialogue. You know, young guy. I was a bit of a meathead in my 20s. I was like, let me just get as big and jacked up as I can for this role. So I was working out like a madman to the point where like it was almost like, you know, when someone's working out so much that you can like, you're like, oh, kind of, you're almost like distractingly jacked up at the time. I was almost like distractingly jacked up at the time. And I remember Glenn being like, Tommy's been working out really hard for the part. And then I remember Glenn saying that, and then William looking at me, kind of like old tough guy saying, yeah, that's good. You're going to need your strength. And he just like smiled at me, and I'm like, all right. Because, and like, I had no fucking clue what he meant.
Yeah.
But just the idea that like being on a movie set, 15-day shoot, we're shooting like 9-10 pages a day. It's a grueling fucking pace. So in his mind, he's like, yeah, great. All your little gym muscles ain't going to mean shit. You're going to need mental strength. You're going to need physical endurance. You know,
Patience.
There's just really patience. Like all these, forget about your muscles. You will need other elements of strength.
Right.
So it's just really funny. Like I'll never forget that. Good. That's good. You're going to need it. It was just such a great flip. And he was one of these guys that like, you ever, you know, I hate to bring, you know, you ever just meet someone who's a little older than you and you just like, man, this person's so fucking cool. And you just want to like, you just want to be around them.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like be around the guy.
Take lessons.
Yeah, like we hit it off. Like we both love baseball, we both love football, and we both love the King. We both love Elvis Presley. There are two kind of people when it comes to Elvis. There are people that say that they're gonna, yeah, I like Elvis. I'm sure you heard of Hound Dog, and you know the you've seen the white suit. Sure. Then there are people that are fucking obsessed with Elvis, and that's how William and I kind of were. Meaning, like we've read every book about Elvis. We know members of the Memphis Mafia by name. You know, we know the inner workings of the man.
Right.
So, and it, like anything else, I mean, it's probably like any other interest, but you know, when you really like something that's kind of obscure, and then you meet somebody who knows it as well, if not better than you do, and it's just like, oh my God, they speak my language. I guess for us wrestling fans, it's kind of like when you meet someone in the wild who also loves wrestling, and you're like, no shit, there are other weirdos like me. So I could just tell right away that me and William were going to be buddies, and as long as I kept my mouth shut and wasn't a cocky motherfucker, he was going to pay me the respect back and kind of teach me a few things, because there were other young actors on the set, and he didn't take them all under his wing. You know, he kind of only like would pal around with me. And I'm not condoning smoking of cigarettes, And God knows I've been up and down with it. I've smoked and then I've quit, and then I've smoked and then I've quit.
Yeah.
Up and down battle for my whole adult
Sure.
life with cigarettes. I don't condone them, and someday I want to say goodbye to them for good. However, smoking cigarettes has led to some of the more interesting bonding experiences that I've had with certain actors and filmmakers, in the sense that there's a bit of a camaraderie that's built where it's like, hey, you want to go outside and have a smoke?
Yeah.
And it's like, absolutely. So like, and again, this is obviously like such a definition of why peer pressure is bad, but like, forget all that shit. This isn't we ain't the Surgeon General podcast. All right.
Yeah.
When William Forsythe as a young actor is like, hey, do you want to go smoke a butt? You damn well, as a young actor, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then like you're under the learning tree suddenly,
Sure.
and you're soaking up all this information just because now William's kind of chosen you to be that person that he's going to go out and have a cigarette with and bullshit and maybe complain about something if he doesn't like something, and you'll pick up something. Maybe he'll say something that he does like and you'll pick up a little nuance. Maybe he'll share a story from yesteryear with you. Now you have all these moments, kind of one-on-one private moments. So me and William were little smoking buddies, and I know it's not good, but that's kind of where we started hitting it off.
You became a confidant. A confidant.
Yeah, we became pals, and we
a
bonded
quick
really.
Confidant.
Yeah, just one of the only benefits to ripping butts is you occasionally get that one-on-one time with someone that you just never would get with them. But moving on, let's just talk about like what I noticed, for actors that are listening to the show, and for people that aren't lung specialists. The thing about watching William was just watching him perform and how he did his thing. And like I remember noting the little things, like William has this great baritone voice. It's like the low keys on a piano. And seeing how he controls it with, like, I feel like one of my probably mistakes as an actor early and coming up, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this. I bet you a lot of actors make this mistake, but see how I'm talking right now? Like this is all you got to do. The mic is right here. You got a mic on you. But for some reason, when actors have a mic on them and they're acting, they suddenly seem the need to talk like this, and like they're suddenly acting a little bit, and it's like everything is just a little extra. And I remember seeing William, and like I had known him now because I knew, like, we had our little cigarette time. And side note, William no longer smokes cigarettes. He was able to quit. So
congratulations, man.
Congrats on William. But when we would have our little sessions, like I knew what he was really like. So I remember like seeing him on the monitor or in the scene that I was with him, being like, he's able to, this sounds so fucking simple, and I wish it was more complex than this. But as an actor, he was just able to sound like he was talking to you in a conversation, like he was just having a butt with you outside, and there was none of this, and indicating that we're in a movie, and it's just so organic, everything he did. And then I remember with his actions were strong and firm. And I remember he told me, like, I had to do an action scene where I like bust in through a door and kind of come out with my gun. And a lot of actors will do things a half a beat slower than they would in real life on camera, because they might think that it's a little too fast or it doesn't read as well. And some directors might tell you to slow down or whatever. William was basically like, Tommy, any action you have to take as an actor, you do it 100% and fully commit at all times. So like if I'm coming in that door with a gun, I'm busting in, I'm putting the gun up, I'm like ready for murder. There's none of this like movie like crap.
Posturing.
Like
no
posturing. You know what, Mike? That's the best way. I think that's truly what he meant. No posturing. Do the fucking action. You got to punch a guy in the face, punch him in the face. Don't make a spectacle out of it, then throw the punch.
Don't look for the camera to get your good side while you're throwing the punch. Just throw the punch.
Just do it.
Really mean it. Yeah.
Yeah, live in those moments and really just like fire out the actions hard. And I'll remember like one of the moments where I kind of like put my tail between my legs on that set was, starting to be like towards that. It wasn't quite summer, but it was probably like a warm May day or, some, spring, and it's getting hot and the crew's working hard and they're like, humping furniture up and down the set, whatever the fuck they had to do. And I said something, I don't know the exact words I said, but I said something to him like, "Oh yeah, I feel bad for those guys. They work a lot harder than we do." And he like got fucking pissed at me, like offended. And he
Right.
said, "Tommy, if you think some grip is working harder than you, and you're not doing your job right, I guess you should be focusing on your role a little bit more." And I
Oh,
was like,
shit.
"Oh," I was like, "Oh, okay."
Let
I was
me
like,
collect my testicles that have just been dropped down the leg of my pant leg
and
here.
I basically just meant like, "Oh, look at this poor
Jeez.
guy. He's carrying a couch up a flight of stairs."
Right.
But to William, he was saying like, "Look, man, that's his job. Our job is equally as complex in your brain. You should be like, why
Sure.
aren't you thinking about that right now instead of watching this fucking idiot climb up the stairs with the couch?
No
You
offense
should."
to him. Yeah.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly. Like,
No offense to the crew, Tommy.
yeah, I know. I just called a poor grip an idiot. What a fucking
From
asshole.
12 years ago.
He wasn't an idiot. I actually
No,
liked all
it's
the grips on that
poor
movie.
poor
But
guy. Yeah, I get it. No, it's William was kind of like I said. He kind of made you his confidant. You became the protege for this gentleman, which is a bonus treat of being working on the movie. Not only that, you're kind of getting one-on-one personal acting coaches from one of the masters in Lifetime.
it very much, and I'm blowing it up, but I felt a little bit like Anakin and Ben Kenobi a little bit. There's a little bit of that back and forth vibe
That's
happening.
cool.
Um, and then that movie kind of finished up, and William was so happy to be in Rhode Island. That movie was shot in Rhode Island, and this movie actually set up a string of like literally 3 movies in a row that he did in Rhode Island with Verdi Productions, and Chad hired him in 3 consecutive films because little did we know, and as I got to know William, guess what one of William's most fond summers he ever spent in his life was?
The
Ready
summer
for
in Rhode
this?
Island. Sure.
When William was 19 years old, he spent a summer, like 2 whole months, at the Ocean Cliff Hotel, which, if you don't know Newport, Rhode Island, it's one of the old school, classiest,
Right.
on the water. Picture just like where classy people go to have dinner, drinks, and dancing. And William was a lounge singer. He provided
Wow.
live entertainment, singing for people, like singing old crooning songs and Sinatra type songs. As a 19-year-old kid, that was his
Yeah.
summer job. So he grew to love the people of Newport, the culture, and hold this one for later. Wouldn't you know, a lot of gangsters back in the 70s would make their way into the Ocean Cliff with their side piece, their girlfriend or
Sure.
whatever.
They're
And
mauled.
William, as a singer, of course, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. A lot of these guys would be, "Oh, who's the kid singing? I want to meet him.
Right.
Yeah, come over." And the gangsters would glad hand him and say, "Hey, how you doing, kid? That was good. What's your name?" And he started to, long before he really knew that he'd be playing all these heavy actors in gangster movies. Here he is, like kind of observing how these guys interact with each other and how they work. So William,
Shorthand. Yeah.
yeah, William loved Rhode Island. So I feel like he had a really good experience on the movie Incubus, so much so that a couple weeks later, or it felt like a couple weeks, it was probably a month later, we were on the set of a movie called Lucy's, which we'll probably do in long form at some point. But the thing about Lucy's was it was kind of like this bit of a cops and robbers kind of movie about a pickpocket. Peter
Yep.
Facinelli plays a handsome young pickpocket who's, kind of he's charming. He's stealing stuff, but nothing too crazy. And William plays this police captain who's kind of after him. And William, it's the classic. I think we shot everything William did in like a day or 2,
Right.
maybe a day, but it might have been 2. But basically, all of his scenes are shot either in the captain's office of the police station, which was the same police station we shot Incubus in, or there was like this, cop bar where him and Madsen had some classic kind of cop scenes, having a beer, talking about the job. And what's unique about that movie is I'm pretty sure, like, if not that anyone would ever do this, but if you were ever to like watch Incubus and then watch Lucy's immediately after, you'd see so many like costumes, props, picture cars. Like there was so much overlap because it was the same production that
Hmm.
they just used a lot of the same stuff and like recycled it. So it's kind of a fun little production tidbit. We've always heard fun stories of like, "Oh, did you know that this prop was also used in this movie and in that
Right.
movie?" And it's kind of I've always been fascinated. Maybe it's because I'm a collector and I collect a lot of different things: action figures, baseball cards, comic books. So like something about like the life of an inanimate object and its travels has always fascinated me.
Yeah, I saw
So like,
something like that, Tommy, on a thing from The Office, Dunder Mifflin, the paper company. Like a fax machine showed up on Parks and Recreation because at some little point there was supposed to be like a crossover between the two shows. Like there was one marginal
right.
character from The Office that was supposed to kind of transfer to be a Parks and Recreation thing, and that fell through. But somehow the fax machine or whatever it is prop made it over. So if you dig into Parks and Rec, you can find this Dunder Mifflin fax machine over there.
Fun little Easter eggs. The life of an inanimate object is a fascinating thing. Stephen E. agrees about the action and says, "Great point. I filmed a short, and the wife was supposed to attack me. She hit me so fake. I made her redo it, and I said, 'You don't hit me.'" Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where, like,
Yeah.
I think again, I'm gonna just talk wrestling because it's just you, me, and Steven at this point. I believe Roddy Piper said it. He said, "I'd rather have you knock my teeth down my throat than hit me with a popcorn punch in front of a full crowd of people."
Right.
So hang
Rather
on to that one.
rather take the pain than make it look fake. Tommy, real
Yep.
quick, when you're talking about the Elvis thing, and just to kind of reemphasize your point about Elvis fans, at one point in my life, my sister wanted to go to Graceland. She wanted to go to Elvis's, home. So I tagged along, and I went with my sister on this trip to Graceland. But going to Graceland wasn't good enough. We also had to go to Tupelo, baby, Tupelo, Mississippi, to see the birthplace of the king, like this one-room
Wow,
shack
that was so
that
you went
Elvis
to the
was
actual
born in.
house.
Yeah, I went to the
No
Tupelo
shit.
house. Me and my sister went to the Tupelo, and it was. I mean, Tommy, just to emphasize the thing about Elvis, it's like you see the humble beginnings fully illustrated. Like the whole family lived in this room, and they had the outhouse, and that was it. There was no like, oh, and here was Elvis's little treehouse where he played, and he had some privacy. The guy did not have any privacy. So I mean, this guy, and look, I mean, there's always families like the Barrymores or
Well, and that's why, not to cut
whoever,
you
but
off, but that's why, this isn't an Elvis show. Maybe someday we'll do an Elvis episode, but that's why Elvis had such a close relationship with his parents. He was very much a mama's boy and a little bit of a daddy's boy too. Although they started to have their differences towards the end there. But imagine that. That's a great point. I never really thought about that. Yeah, you probably would be awfully close to your parents if you were an only child. We all know Elvis had a twin brother who died at a very young age. I don't think he might
James
have died.
Cameron,
Might have
stillborn,
died in childbirth. Yeah, was it?
stillborn,
Maybe
yeah.
it was a stillborn. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you got an only child living in one room with their parents until he's 18 years old. You're gonna be pretty close with those people. So yeah, after Lucy's, probably one of my favorite adventures as an actor was on a movie called Infected, also directed by Glenn Ciano. And this was a classic, traditional zombie romp, post-apocalyptic setup type movie that took place all in the isolated Timbuktu, middle of nowhere woods of Rhode Island, a town called Foster, Rhode Island, which if you're from Rhode Island, you know that like motherfuckers from Rhode Island we don't go to Foster. We just don't go there. That's like
Yeah.
you got to have a real fucking reason to go there.
Unless you get lost. Yeah.
So we were in the middle of the woods, and I just remember like William playing this kind of doctor character who was going to be holed up with the family, and we're going to do an episode on Infected in long form. That was really my first. I had a good role in Infected. I mean, I had a good role in Incubus, and I had a good role in Lucy's, smaller, but it was still nice to just be on the team. But Infected was truly my first role where like I'm in the whole movie and I got lines and just about every other scene and a real character with a bit of an arc. So it was really a special film for me. So again, knowing that I'd go on that ride with William, knowing that we'd have multiple scenes together, knowing that I actually had a one-on-one fight with William in this movie, which I was very intimidated about because I didn't want to fuck anything up.
Yeah.
Just knowing all these things was really kind of fun for me, and I'm glad that I got to share that with William and not some other actor who I hadn't already put all that time in, and kind of like that. What would you call it, Mike? Like relationship building already, that we had.
Bonding.
Yeah, that bonding.
Creating that shorthand. You know, when you work with someone 3 or 4 times, you start to develop a shorthand where instead of having a whole blown out conversation, a simple look or 1 or 2 sentences can achieve the same thing.
Yeah, and I think that's also one of those things where, remember, it was not until towards the end of Incubus where we really started hitting it off. I think it was nice that we could start with already being buddies so that, and I'm going to get into it now. William, I'm not taking anything away from what Glenn Ciano did as a director. Glenn was great and really took me under his wing and let me grow a lot as an actor on that movie. So Glenn definitely was my director on that film. So I don't want to mince words, but William was almost like an acting coach on set. Like, how
Sure.
you'll have the director, but then an actor will also have a coach sometimes. He was my guy who was in my ear. And like, I remember, I'm not much of a fighter, guys. I'm more of a lover than a fighter. I'm fortunate. Like, aside from a couple of dust ups in high school, maybe like I like football practice or something. Like, I never really got into too many fights. So like as far as like throwing punches and things like that, that's just not my thing, man. I usually find a way to talk myself out of a lot of jams. Um, so William was like, Tommy, I think I gotta show you how to throw a punch. And it was actually William who like it was like out of a movie. Like, all right, put your hands up like this. Let's get you're left-handed. All right, so put your right hand forward, put your left hand back. And he taught me everything, because there's obviously a real punch and then there's a movie punch.
Yes.
And part of what makes a movie punch work is the angulation of the attack and how you must go across the camera. If you snap your punches right and twist with your leg and you twist your foot and you put your ass and your hips into it and you really come across camera, it looks like you're about to fucking pulverize someone. Like you look like Mike Tyson. Like you can
Sure.
make someone look like Mike Tyson without even, and the best part is in terms of the camera cell, you could be like a whole fucking foot away from the person's face. So it's very safe to do. And you turn and you snap across and on camera, it looks terrific. Those are things that like, you just don't know how to do. You know what I mean? And I remember William taught me and I started to get it. And such an old school reference. He goes, Steve McQueen, Tommy. I'm like, what? He goes, you look just like Steve McQueen when you throw that punch. And he was
Yeah.
trying to build me up, man. Like he was
Sure,
trying to
that's
make me
nice.
feel cool. And then I remember like we were in the scene on set
Yeah.
and we're like battling all these zombies. And I remember like he looks across from me and he goes, Steve McQueen, Tommy. Like right across the whole cast. And I'm like, oh man, this guy's like firing me up. And he didn't have to fucking do that, man.
He's looking out for you, and to his credit, he's looking out for you, but he's kind of not passing the torch, but sharing the torch, let's say. And he's also smart move on his part because the better you are in the movie, the better the movie will be that he's in. So smart guy.
Yeah, it was just really cool. So
Generous
those two
guy
movies,
too.
yeah, really generous. And those two movies came out and we really got to spend a lot of time together. Remember, this was the middle of nowhere, so it was very much like campfires at night and bonding with the whole crew and chilling and more Elvis talk and lots of funny shit happened on that set and we just had a great time. And then the movies came out and we got to promote them. And we got to
Right.
do, the traveling roadshow, which is go to horror conventions because remember William's done these movies like The Devil's Rejects and one of the Halloween reboots. So like he's huge in the horror scene. So we would go to these conventions and now, like friendship level upgrade. Like now I got all this time in the bank. I've been on set with him all this time and
Sure.
now we're like buddies going to the conventions together and we're on the same side of the table sort of.
Yeah.
And I'm doing signings with William and I'm doing all these like press events with William and I'm learning from William about that side of the acting game. Because any actor will tell you this, who really does this, on a regular basis. Promoting the film is I don't want to say as much of a big importance, but promoting the film is a big part of what the actor's job is. Your
Yes.
job is not just to be in the movie. It's once you're in the movie to tell everyone in the world to see the fucking movie and why they should see it.
Right.
So I started to learn how William worked that side of the game. And he was just a legend at these conventions. Everybody loved him. So like the rub, just like being around him was pretty damn cool. And I remember he introduced me to a friend of his named Andrew Divoff, who we're going to talk about later, who's a great actor, and he was in the Wishmaster franchise, which
I remember those.
Wishmaster was a really cool kind of horror franchise from that, like, I believe I want to say early 90s kind of era, and it had a really cool makeup design. So that was Andrew Divoff, who would later be in Vault. But let's put a pin in that for now and talk about Almost Mercy. So we talked about William's love for Rhode Island. He loved Rhode Island so much after these 3 movies that, I shit you not, he bought a fucking house in Rhode Island. And he actually moved here for a little while. And during that time, I remember feeling so fucking cool because he called me, like, just to hang out a couple times, and like we would just chill and catch up sometimes. And you know, I don't want to over advertise our relationship. We didn't hang out every weekend, but there were
Sure.
definitely a few times when it was like, hey, what are you doing? And William would take a ride and hang on the porch here for a little while. And one time in particular, he said, hey, Tommy, what are you doing? And I said, hey, I'm actually on the set of a movie I'm doing. It's called Almost Mercy. And he knew Bill Moseley, who, you know, Bill and him were
Right.
buddies. And Bill was in the movie, and Kane Hodder, so he knew those guys. And well, sure enough, William says, yeah, I'll take a ride. I'll come visit you. And I have a picture of me, Chad Verdi, and William Forsythe on set, with William Forsythe right in the middle. And it was so cool to me because, like, William's not in the movie.
Right.
Like, he just came to, like, hang out as my buddy that day. And, like, yeah, I'll come check it out. And he was like, I remember that day, he was like, good job, Tommy. You did a good job. Because he had never seen me as a director before.
Sure.
You know, at that point, William only knew of me as Tommy, his, you know, little Padawan learner acting buddy. So he's like, I like how you move on set. He's like, you did a good job today. And it was, like, really cool to hear that. And then I said, you know, I'm one of those people. I'm always kind of like, if somebody says that, well, I'm going to try and level it up and say, well, hey, William, I would love to show you a rough cut of this. Like, when I get the cut together, do you want to come over and watch it? He said, yeah, give me a call, you know? So cut to, I don't know, a few months later, 6 months later, whatever it was, I got my rough cut. Actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't a rough cut. It was kind of it's almost my director's cut. Like, I was ready to walk away from the fucking thing.
Right.
William comes over, he watches the movie, and I don't want to say he rips it to shreds, but there were some notes that he gave me that were like, he gave me notes in quite a few scenes, and a few of them were so simple but so fucking brilliant. And I took every single one of them.
Right.
There wasn't one note, you know, a lot of filmmakers out there, they'll get so in their head that somebody will try to help them that has way more experience and knowledge than them. But they'll get so in their head and so stuck in, I'm an artist, this is my way, you know, fuck that
Yeah.
shit. When somebody who's a lot more experienced and has been doing this since 1979 suggests you do something, you probably should fucking do it. And there's a good reason why. So I took every one of his notes and I put it together. And then I remember the movie came out. And listen, you could argue that's my best movie to this day. Like, when you think of, like, the budget we had to make it, the amount of days we shot it in, the production value we were able to put on the screen, I'm very proud of the movie Almost Mercy, and I'll say it today. One of the reasons why that cut did get to that next level is the help and tutelage that I got from William Forsythe in the editing room. And I remember thanking him that day, and I said, William, man, thank you so much. Like, I love the changes that we made today, and it's just like, it's fucking unbelievable.
Right.
And he said, yes, Thomas, because he would call me Thomas sometimes when he was, like, trying to be funny. He'd go, yes, Thomas. Well, someday I'm not going to be here, and you're going to have to do this on your own. And I said, shit, man, all right. Fuck. Basically just saying, like, and what he meant by that, again, like, it wasn't this dramatic, like, I'm going to be dead. Like, I just think he meant, like I'm not always going to be able to hold your hand in the editing room.
Yeah.
But I think what he meant was, you know, I'm all about subtext. I almost think that nobody says something to say something. I'm always looking for, like, these second meanings. Of course, I'm a fucking titanic overthinker. And this is probably why I drive myself fucking insane. And I'm always like, what did he mean by that? And a lot of times they didn't mean shit. They just meant what they said.
They don't remember what they said as much as you do.
No, but he basically said, you know, I hope you learned today. I hope
Yeah,
you didn't, you know, it's almost like when you're cheating on a math test. Yes,
right.
I'm admitting to have cheated on many math tests, but it's like when you're cheating on a math test and you look over and you just get the number and write it down, you might have the right answer, but you have no fucking clue why that's the right answer, do you?
Right.
No. So he wanted to make sure that I wasn't just cheating on the math test. I wasn't just like, oh, cut here. Oh, get rid of this. Oh,
Right.
remove that character. No, he wanted to make sure that like I understood why the changes were made rather than specifically the changes themselves, if that makes any sense.
No, I think so, buddy. It's like you absorb, you learned, not just memorize and repeat. You didn't just follow instructions. You learned why these corrections or why these tweaks or choices, whatever you want to call it, edits were the better way to go. And so the next time you made a movie and William wasn't there to help with editing as a as a suggestion guy, then you could do that on your own. You'd be
Yeah,
equipped with a skill set. To
and
teach
we're
a
going to
man how
talk
to
about that.
fish, he was
I
teaching you how to
promise you,
fish.
brother. He taught me how to fish rather than bring me the fish. But I
Right.
promise you, this story will pay off and come full circle. First, we're going to check in with Stephen Thomas. At least he didn't call you by your entire government name. No, he didn't. But the old, I'll never forget the old sit back and with great pondering in his face. Ah, Thomas, someday. You know, it's just funny shit. Um,
What's your middle name again, Tommy? Is it
Thomas
Escobar?
Dominic DiNucci.
Oh, that's it.
Could you ask for a more Italian motherfucker?
I love it.
Okay, so we're moving on.
Yeah.
Now, I had this great experience with Almost Mercy, and I was ready to make my next big kind of splash, which was Vault. Uh, I remember, I'll never forget the day Chad Birdie and I had this great meeting, and we just kind of looked at each other, and we almost came to the conclusion at the same time when Chad was like, "Do you want to make that movie? Let's make that movie." And we were all fired up and excited to make Vault. And one of the first people that we wanted on that team for Vault was William Forsythe. And who knew better than the Rhode Island gangster folklore feel than this
Yeah.
guy who was literally rubbing elbows with these gangsters as a 19-year-old, singing songs for them at the Ocean Cliff Club in Newport. So William was thrilled to be part of the bonded Vault heist film called Vault, so much so that, you know, this is pretty cool. I mean, every actor that took part in that movie, once I told them the story of Bonded Vault, they were like, "Wow, that's so cool. I can't believe no one's made a movie about this yet." William knew all about it. He knew all about the Bonded Vault. He knew all about Raymond Petriarca and that, you know, because remember, and I don't want to make this a mafia crime podcast, but there's a big connection between Rhode Island gangsters and New York gangsters. They were a bit of a partnership there,
Sure.
because what's a quick stop between Boston, which was a big gangster hub, and New York, the biggest gangster hub?
Providence. Yeah.
Providence,
Rhode
Rhode Island, where
Yeah.
all these friendly Italians are there to help you out back in the 70s and
I'm a
80s.
cannoli. Yeah.
So William knew all about that little pit stop called Providence, Rhode Island, and just how important it was in the organized crime scene, particularly in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So he was thrilled to be in this movie, thrilled to play Buddy Providence. That was his character's name. I'm not going to give too many spoilers away on the movie, but I remember just some really quick notes about that movie. He dyed his hair black, which was cool. He wanted to look more Italian. You know, a lot of times at that time, William was rocking a lot of the more like light brown, almost blondish, kind of letting some of the grays show. This, he wanted to have black hair. He's like, nah, I want to look like one of the boys, you know, because he would tell me like a lot of these old gangsters, they'd be dyeing their hair until the day they died jet black.
Right.
And it was just really cool to see him put all those nuances. I think he had a mustache. He so looked the part. And I remember he had a request for me in his character's introductory scene. He's like, "Tommy, while we're playing cards, I'd love to be yucking it up with the guys and eating some hot wieners." If you're not familiar with what a hot wiener is, a lot of times people refer to them as belly busters. A lot of times people, refer to them as just boiled hot dogs. That's really all they are. They're just boiled hot dogs. But they make them here special in Rhode Island. They're very unique. They'll put onions on them. They'll put meat sauce on them. They're fucking delicious. They're the kind of food that like tastes amazing on the way down, and then you feel like you're gonna drop dead maybe 20, 30 minutes later, but it's
Right.
almost worth it. So William was very adamant about. He's like, I want these wieners. And I remember he's there when we introduce him. He's playing cards. He's winning money. He's eating these wieners. It's a great fucking scene.
Sure.
And also, there's a really great scene with him and Sean Ringgold where he plays, there's a mafia hit. And it was his idea. He improv this line where he walks up to the guy with a bag, and inside the bag, he's passing out sandwiches. And he's like, I got sandwiches for everybody. And he's like, I got the Italian for you. I got the meatball for you. And then he looks at the guy he's about to shoot, and he goes, "In for you." And this is a William line. I have to give him credit. He improv this line. It was supposed to be a different type of sandwich. He goes, "In for you, I got a nice big stromboli." And then boom, boom. Instead of a sandwich being in the sandwich bag, there's a fucking gun, and he shoots the guy in his eye, shoots his eyes out. I don't know that I'll ever make a better hit scene in my career.
Yeah.
That might be the high water mark for my assassination scenes. Maybe not. Hopefully not. Maybe 10 years from now. I know I got another gangster movie in me someday.
Sure.
But as of right now, that takes the cake. So if you're watching Vault, watch the scene where William doles out sandwiches. And in the future, if William ever offers you a stromboli,
Pass.
don't fucking eat it. Pass. Say, no, I already ate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Andre Sanchez liked that one.
Yes, Andres, what's up? What's up, brother? Yeah, the stromboli, it can be, give you a little bit of indigestion in the eyeballs if you eat it too fast.
Oh, man.
And yeah, Stephen E says, "Oh, we got the hot wieners in Connecticut too."
Yes.
Yeah, they're fucking good, man. They'll make you like. Again, you might not feel great afterwards, but it's a good time on the way.
Tastes good going in.
And that was also another cool tidbit about that one. William said, "Hey, Tommy, you got this French guy. There was a French character named Buddy Woonsocket." And he said, "What about Andrew Divoff playing that role?" Because Andrew's of French. He's a French heritage. And he even could speak a little bit of French. He wasn't fluent. He wasn't fluid in it. Excuse me. Imagine if this whole time, my whole life, I thought the word fluent was actually fluid. There are people
fluid in it. Yeah.
I guarantee you somewhere there's a person who thinks that the word fluent is fluid. And like he's been caught saying, "No, he speaks he's fluent. He's fluid in Spanish."
Yeah.
Fluid in it.
Fluid.
I guarantee you that we should put that in a movie. Make some idiot use it as like a line for an idiot.
The production assistant was doing his job.
He's like, I'm fluid in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he brought in Andrew Divoff to play Buddy Woonsocket, which was really cool. And about 6 months after production, when we finished the cut, I had Andrew and William over my house for a little bit of a little sleepover. A little sleepover party where they were going to come by my place. And it's funny, man. Like William's got his own room at my house. Like I had a guest room for Andrew. And it's just fun to like be kind of rubbing shoulders with these guys. Having them over the house, and like I'm really fucking nervous because now I've got to play the movie for these two guys. And we're here on the porch. I got the TV kitty cornered and ready to go. And I play it for them. And they're watching the movie and I'm watching them. And I just got my eyes on them the whole fucking time.
Right.
And I remember feeling good within the first like 10 minutes. William just looked over at me and he goes, "You did it right. You're doing it right so far." And I'm like, "Okay, all right. I'm doing it right so far." Whatever the fuck that means. And then finally, at the end of the film, the credits roll and Andrew's clapping, William's clapping. "Tommy, you did a really fine job. You did a really good job. It's tremendous. I love it." He really loved it. And, I can't tell you like how much that meant to me because let's face it, from everything I've told you in the last hour about William Forsythe, he is not the kind of guy to bullshit you.
Sure.
And if he had a bunch of problems with the movie, I would have fucking heard about it.
Yeah.
And if he had suggestions on how to make the movie better, we know I would have heard about it because he helped me on Almost Mercy when I needed a little pick me up.
Sure.
And sure enough, at the end of it all, I said to him, I said, "Hey, William, I don't know if you remember this, but when you came over to check out Almost Mercy, you said to me, Thomas, someday you will have to do this on your own." I think I did it on my own. What do you think? And I really said that to him.
Oh boy.
And he looked at me and he smiled big and he put his hand out and he said, "You really did." He said, "You did it, Tommy. You really did it." And he shook my hand and he smiled. And, it was almost like this, like, kind of like a big brother fatherly moment, whatever you want to
Sure.
call it, where like
Mentor.
you kind of, you earn the respect of your mentor.
Right. Karate Kid, Daniel's son hits the crane kick or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, he just told me that he thinks that I did something really special and that, the important thing was, look, there's been a million mafia movies, right? Like there's been so many of them. They're almost like, in a lot of ways, a mafia movie is almost like a horror film, right? There's a built-in audience of people that just love those kind of movies and they're going to watch them no matter what. So what that means is there's going to be an overflow of them. And whenever you have an overflow of anything, there's going to be a lot of shit to sort through. So there's
Yeah.
been a lot of bad mafia movies. And I think William, kind of what made me proud was he basically said, like, you did a good job of avoiding a lot of the traps that a lot of these kind of lesser than mafia movies fall into. So I was happy about that. And then of course it came time to promote the movie. About a year later, William came back to Rhode Island, and we just had a tour, man. Like every signing, every press junket, every available appearance was made. We had a bunch of great dinners. William stayed at the house for a few days. I remember he was only supposed to stay for 2 days, but then he kept like, "Tommy, you know what? I think I'm gonna stay for another day." He had like this dentist appointment that I think he wanted to like push off. It's like, I canceled that appointment. I'm gonna stay another day because he just loved Rhode Island. And at this time, by
Yeah.
this time, he had sold his house in Rhode Island because a few years had gone by. So it was just one of those things where like I just think he wanted to stick around Rhode Island a little bit longer because he loved it so much. But he couldn't have been better in terms of just like promoting that movie and getting it out there. And I said Almost Mercy might be my best movie, but I think you could also argue that Vault might be my best movie. And if you haven't seen Vault, check it out. It's streaming right now on Hulu. You can check it out on there, and very proud of that one. I feel it's one of my more complete films from beginning, middle to the end, and very
Theo,
very happy that William Forsythe is in that one.
yeah, William Forsythe, Theo Rossi. Who was the lead female? She's done some other things recently.
Samira Wiley,
She's done some big things.
Orange is the New Black, Handmaid's
Right.
Tale.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, every movie is a little bit of a scrapbook to your life when you're a filmmaker. You're always gonna like, you can't help it, but like memories are encapsulated in every frame of the film. And when I watch a movie, like every frame, I don't see what's on the screen. I often see like what was happening to the left and to the right and to behind the screen that made
Yeah.
what happened on screen work. And it's just so cool to know that, almost like a tattoo that I can have on my body, that like William Forsythe's in that movie and he's there. He's in that film forever.
Yeah.
So that makes me feel good. I think that's about all I can say about William for now. I hope that we get a chance to work together again sometime. He's a great friend, great person, great father. And aside from being an actor, he's a great son. Takes care of his mom, still to this day. So I can't say enough good things about William Forsythe. And we hope William's doing well today, and we wish him a happy 67th. We're a week late, but hey, better late than never.
I was
Steven
watching.
says, Vault was
Yeah,
amazing. Thank you, brother. We appreciate that.
Steven's a good guy. I was watching in preparation for this week's episode, Tommy, some interviews with William that are from various sources on YouTube, and I would like to give a shout out to one. I think it was called Convention Junkies. This guy was such a huge William Forsythe fan, and they sat down about 5 years ago at a convention and talked about the films. And one of the questions the guy asked was, William, do you have any fan interaction, like peculiar fan interaction stories, like fans who see you at a convention and they go too far or they do something stupid? And William was so diplomatic and so respectful. He said, he said there's a few stories that I can't really tell because, whatever reason you can't tell them. But he said most, 99% of the fans are so respectful and they're so intelligent, and a lot of fans are picking up on things in these movies or TV shows that I'm in that the film industry people, which might be critics or reporters or whatever, they're missing. But the typical, the regular fan who's watching on home TV, whether it's Boardwalk Empire or one of your films, Vault or whatever that he's in, these regular fans are picking up so much. And William really put that over and put the regular fan over as a big part of his motivation to keep on trucking.
Well, that makes sense, Mike. I mean, think about it. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. He's kind of just grew up a regular guy, grew up as a kind of middle class, lower middle class, kid in Brooklyn. There's a kid in Brooklyn just growing up doing his thing. So I think that he's still kind of drawn to the common person. And I've seen him interact with fans, and he's terrific. So we love William. We loved working with him, and we appreciated all the time he's spending with us today. Have to cut this one a little bit short today. As I said, I'm going to go into an ADR session in a little bit, but we're very happy that we were able to get out here and do a show. If you'd like to follow me, as Stephen E. mentioned earlier in the show, I do have a webinar coming out on Thursday. If you go on my social media pages right now, you'll see advertisements for it. That's at Tom DiNucci on Instagram and Twitter. It's going to be a little webinar going down we're going 8 o'clock to 9:30 Eastern time on Thursday. And like I said,
AM or PM?
PM. All the information is on my social media, and I'll be posting about that right up to the day, which is coming closer and closer. And I'll be off next week to film this movie. Next week is a little bit up in the air. We're going to try our best to get a show out. But again, I am on set pretty much every day, which makes it a little challenging. We might have to do something where Mike and I just record the episode at an odd time and just put it out there, and hopefully y'all will check it out. But please follow me at Tom DiNucci. And if you haven't already, it's so important because we're really trying to build these numbers up. Please subscribe to the show and my channel. Subscribe to my channel, and then tell your friends about it too. If you get friends that are into filmmaking and acting, and you think that maybe they could learn a thing or two from Mike and our trials and tribulations in this business, tell them about the show. Real quick, we've got Brandon Brooks. What's up, Brandon? How you doing, man?
William is
William is one of the greatest actors and greatest living actors and best individuals anyone will ever meet.
Nice comment. Thank you.
That's a fact, man. Thank you, Brandon. And Stephen, the webinar is this Thursday, which is, we're pulling it up here. That's going to be the 16th.
Yeah, 16th at 8 p.m. EDT, Eastern Standard Time. Or, there's two different things. There's EDT and EST, which are usually the same thing. I went into a whole rabbit hole on that.
It's funny, man. It's funny you mentioned that. I've seen people recently just doing like ET as Eastern Time, which
yeah.
I mean, sure, it's like ET phone home, whatever works for you. But Mike, tell us real quick where we can get your socials, and then let's get the go home signal and get on out of here.
Okay. Well, I do want to say that the one time I went to see your film Incubus at that Rock and Shock way back when, before you and I were good friends, I was actually waiting in line to see the movie, and I hear a tapping on this glass, and it's the convention hall, like the whole wall is basically a glass wall, right? And it's William Forsythe outside, like on the street, wearing his sport coat and his nice suit, looked really sharp, and he's just like knocking and waving at the fans. And of course, a lot of people recognized him, and I did. It was just, the point is, he was so joyous and obviously having a laugh, but with us, as and just happy to be there. And I don't want to say childlike. He was more like mischievous, like almost a good-natured sophomoric bit of fun. No harm, obviously, but just kind of knocking and waving, And so I always like that. It's just sometimes you get these little slices of people's personality, and for that was me on William Forsythe. For me, Tommy, people go to MikeMessier.com, and if you scroll to the bottom, my 6 books on Amazon are all available. very happy to say that Avalonia Photography Competition 2 just ended. We named all the 28 award winners in photography. If you go to Avalonia Festival with a V, avaloniafestival.com, and push the APC2 button, you'll see the photographic winners of APC2. APC3 is taking submissions of photographs. Avalonia Festival is taking submissions of short films, etc., including monologues. So Stephen E., you might want to enter that. And it's been another pleasure, Tommy. I really like hearing the personal stories of you and William. I didn't know all that stuff before today, so I'm glad that we did this episode.
Thanks, man. It was really fun sharing them. You know, it's so funny. Like when you kind of been doing this for a long time, you forget some of those little things that help you along the way. So it's great doing the show. I love kind of thinking back, and sometimes we forget something that happened to us 10 days ago.
Right.
So it's easy to forget something that happened to us 10 years ago. So when I sit down and think about this show and think about those times, it's always like a flood of kind of really fun memories. It's nice to share them with everybody. We're going to do a poll as far as our next show. We're going to share a couple ideas, and we're going to let y'all pick what we talk about. So be on the lookout for my social media pages. We're going to do it on Facebook, and we're going to let the audience here decide what we talk about next week. So everybody have an awesome week. Enjoy your weekend coming up. Like I said, we're going to try our damnedest to put something out next week, but it's going to be a clusterfuck. And wish us luck as we navigate the choppy waters. We'll see you next time, guys.